all aboard for your chance to win $1,000 every week until December 28th. That's right, $1,000 cash just in time for the holidays. To hop on board, just head to churchillmortgage.com and punch your ticket to the Churchill Express giveaway. Visit churchillmortgage.com for your chance to win big.
This is a paid advertisement. NMLS ID 1591. NMLSconsumeraccess.org. Equal housing lender. 1749 Mallory Lane, Suite 100, Brentwood, Tennessee 37027.
There was some paperwork that indicated that this was from the Zeta Reticuli star system. Now, how they obtained that, I haven't the slightest idea. But it wasn't just from the Zeta Reticuli star system. It was what they called ZR3. So it was a third planet in that star system. Is a binary star, two stars that orbit one another, and it's only visible in the southern hemisphere, and it's about 30 some odd light years away.
Here's the Zetas. We have a number of craft. Our motherships are monstrous and are hover overhead where you cannot view them because we bend light rays around them, so you think you're seeing the cloud on the other side of the mothership, or we hide within clouds. We have a series of smaller craft. Some are operational to carry perhaps 30 of ourselves or humans. These are the type of craft where if we are picking people up to meet, and we do act as a coordinator among contactees.
And you're listening to the Alien Strand podcast with Donald Ledesma. Catch my channel, Mars Discoveries 123 on YouTube. Hit me a like and subscribe. I'll see you there.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Alien Strand podcast. I'm your host, Donald Ledesma, and welcome to episode number 45. This one's going to be called The Zeta Factor. And, I wanted to talk about the Zeta Reticuli because it always comes up in a lot of alien abduction conversations or documentaries, and they don't really talk about it that much, they kind of just bring it up and they don't get into too much detail about it. So today, I decided to give you just a little bit more information on Zeta Reticuli, on 1 and 2. Okay? But before we get into that, I'd like to welcome everybody to the Alien Strand podcast. You can catch us on Alien Strand there on Facebook, Tumblr, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and alienstrand.com. Check us out there. So you know that I post a lot of videos, a lot of photos, a lot of pictures of UFOs, and also some historical photos as well. I like to get into everything, Bigfoot, you name it. It's just because I want you guys to have a big, nice information on what's going on out there, just like a big database. So that's pretty much what Alien Strand is trying to do here for all you guys. We just don't focus on one thing. We focus on a lot of different things. So if you want to be a guest on the show, you can call us at 361-245-8000. Again, that's 361-245-8000. Now, if you go to the Facebook page, you'll see on Alien Strand, right below the main page, it's going to say a call now. If you click that, it'll actually call that number I just gave you. So if you have a book, you have a story, you have a video, anything you'd like to tell on Alien Strand, or just get it off your chest, or an abduction, you can put it on the show, and I'll be glad to have you on the show, and to get the information and to get your story out for everybody to listen to. And also, you can download the Alien Strand app. So we have that app right now on Google Play. So you can just go to your Android on your Play device there, click on that app, and then it'll take you. You can just type in Alien Strand, right, and it'll take you right to the podcast. You'll see the photo of the main page of Alien Strand. Just download that, and that's a player, right? So what that's going to do, it's going to allow you to listen to every single episode that Alien Strand podcast puts out, right? So when a new one comes out, you guys will be the first ones to get it. And also when I do a live podcast, right, you'll be able to interact with me live. There's also, if you sign in there, log in, you'll be able to comment on each podcast, see how much you enjoy it, if it needs more information, or if you want more information, you can actually click on the photo on the top right. You'll see a little I button. That's the information. That'll tell you all the links that I actually post to the podcast to kind of takes you to the guest or anything that they have, or all the information where I got this from. Okay, so if you want to, just go ahead and download that app. And if you can't find it, just go to alienstrand.com. And you'll be able to, on the main homepage, on the very bottom right, you'll see the little Android device there picture. Click on that. That'll take you right to it. So, and I really do appreciate you guys for doing that. We have a YouTube there as well. You can go to YouTube, check out a couple of our videos. I'm thinking of kind of posting our podcasts on there. I might throw a few of them on there, so that way you can, if you like YouTube better, I'll throw some on there. I don't do video podcasts because I like doing the audio podcast. It kind of gets you thinking a little bit better, and I pretty much call those video casts to me. But anyway, they're just as good. So, but I was thinking of putting on the audio podcast there on YouTube, and I'll probably get one up there pretty soon. Okay, so if you guys want me to do that, throw me a shout out. Hey, throw one out there, Donald, and I'll do that for you guys. And if it goes good, I'll just keep on posting them up there as well. So I don't know if you caught my last podcast. That was with Elena Danan, and that one was a really special one, right? Because she was actually abducted, and she got to tell her story on what happened to her as a child. So if you have a chance, check back on that episode. It's called They Came Back, number 44. So if you have a chance, go back and check that out, right? And you'll be able to listen to her story. And I have a lot of other stories before that. I talk about a lot of extraterrestrials and what they're about and what their agenda is. Right. I even talk about degrees and where they're from. And that's why I decided to talk about Zeta Reticuli. Right. And, Zeta Reticuli. So I'm going to start giving you some information on that. So it's basically a pair of stars. Right. And they're about 220 trillion miles away. So that's pretty far. I mean, that's pretty far. 220 trillion miles. They're about 39.4 to 39.5 light years from the sun, or soul, what people call it sometimes. And I always wondered, who who discovered the Zeta Reticuli? Have you ever wondered that? Well, I was kind of wondering about that, and I dug in a little bit, and and they said it was probably discovered by a William Jacob Luytun, Luytun, between 1899 and 1994. I guess that was his lifespan. So they said that he found it by the proper motions of about 520,000 stars. Just by looking at the motions of the stars as the Earth rotates, right? Despite having one blind eye. Doesn't that always intrigue you a little bit, how these people, they'll have like a handicap of some sort, right? But they're able to do extraordinary things. It kind of pushes them to do something more and to find something more. And I applaud them for that, because it's not easy. I mean, it's not easy to do that. But he ended up finding this constellation, right? So they pretty much said that Zeta 1 became one of the top 100 stars for NASA. And they called this the Terrestrial Planet Finder, which is TPF. So they were going to start a program, right? Which was NASA. And they named it, right? Terrestrial Planet Finder. And they were going to start investigating this star. But because of financial, they didn't have enough money, I guess, for it. This actual program was postponed. So they weren't able to get into deep, exploration, I guess, of these stars using these strong telescopes. And Zeta 1, really, and Zeta 2, a lot of people think, the Zeta 1, Zeta 2. When I first heard that, I didn't know too much about it, right? I thought it was a planet, right? Each one was a planet. But no, Zeta 1 and Zeta 2, if you look at it, I think they said you can see it through October and December, actually, with your naked eye. They're kind of yellow-orange stars. And basically, they're just like our sun. So those two bright stars that you see, Zeta 1 and Zeta 2, are actually suns. Huge suns. And you can find these images actually in NASA's exoplanet archives. So if you have a chance, go look back, and you'll find these pictures of these planets. Very beautiful looking pictures. So a lot of UFO theorists, believe that Zeta 2, the brightest star of those two, harbors a base of extraterrestrials, which we call the Greys, right? A lot of stories came from there. They say it came from Zeta 2, when Betty and Barney Hill, their story was in Zeta Reticuli. It didn't really say exactly which one it was. But a lot of these stories, when they put them together, they're always from these two, which I thought they were planets, but actually they're stars. They're almost like suns. But it has its own constellation, right? Its own galaxy in a way, right? There's a bunch of planets that actually surround these two stars. A bunch. I mean, they're a distance away from them. They're not so close, like our solar system. They have a good distance from each one of those suns, right? And those stories that came from the Zetas and the Greys, it first came from when the first vehicle that crashed there in Roswell, New Mexico, right? So on April 1st, 1997, PBS, I don't know if you remember that station, I think it's still up there, they aired a show called Nova, in which the Hill incident was explained. And the show was called Kidnapped by UFOs. This is the first time that anybody actually heard of the Greys and abduction and what they were about, right? And where they came from, right? Nobody knew where they came from until then, until that story popped out. So on May 18th, 2010, this is not too long ago, astronomers submitted a preprint of a presence of a cold, eccentric dust ring around Zeta 2. So they're starting to dig a little deeper into this star, right? And this is the key right here. On September 20th, this was before 1996, the European Southern Observatory detected a giant planet around Zeta 2. Now, is this where the Greys are coming from? You know, as soon as I read that, I was kind of blown away about it. You know, thinking, they only see these two stars, right? I'm sure it's hard to see if let's say if there was something like directly behind that sun that we're not able to see with our telescope, right? Because it's behind it, just like our eclipse, right? Let's say we have an eclipse, you can't see anything that's behind it. So who's to say that there's not a planet behind that sun that we just can't see? And apparently, the size of this planet is about 27% of Jupiter's mass. Now, we all know how huge Jupiter is. It's freaking huge. I imagine 27%. That's way larger than the Earth, still. You know, and for them to find a planet, you know, behind the Zeta, I think that was a real, strong find that we probably are probably going to get that hit once in a million years. Try to get a chance to see something like that. I mean, unless our telescopes are getting stronger and stronger, of course they are. I think they're going to be sending one out here pretty soon. One's going to be retiring, and they're going to send out a new one out. It's supposed to be this 2020 this year. So this big old planet, right, is moving in a close inner orbit, which is a 0.14 AUS. And it only has a period of 18.9 days. So for an Earth-like planet, you would need to be at least, they say, 0.9 AU, right? Which will give you an orbital period, in other words, to go around the sun, 320 days. This one only, let's say it orbits 18.9. So if you don't know what an AU is about 93 million miles. So if you ever hear this in a scientific term or a planetary term, when they say an AU, that's going to be 93 million miles. So imagine that. So why not Zeta? Why not come from Zeta? It has these two suns right next to each other, and a bunch of large planets to the right, to the left, 3 or 4 above it, or in front of it, and a small cluster of planets to the left of it. it's kind of strange the way it looks. It looks almost like I would say like a squid or an octopus kind of stretching its tentacles out in a way. That's the way it kind of looks. I'm sure you guys have seen the photos that are out there. So I don't know if you guys heard of Bob Lazar. He was on the beginning of this podcast. So when he was there in S4, he says that that he was told and debriefed that these crafts originated from the planet of Zeta Reticuli, right? He saw these crafts. You know, he even said that he saw photos of a dead alien that was only from the shoulder on up to the head. He says that they had removed an organ. I guess this is where the heart is. This is the photo that he saw. And he says he couldn't really tell how tall this little gray was. He knows they're real, but he estimated they're about 3.5 feet to 4 feet tall, right? A lot of abductees, they always say that this is about how tall these grays are. You know, he even said that through all the information and through the EBEs, the EBE-1 that he was debriefed on, he said that there's about 63 to 65 different variations of the DNA, which he claims that finally resulted in the human creature. In other words, what he's trying to say is that they're supposed to be the ones who created man. Humans. I'm just going to say it that way. That they've been trying through all the years. This is what he says, what he claims, because how he was briefed on everything. That this is what they told them. So, you know, he says the only reason that he got that job was because 2 other scientists had died working on a UFO reactor. He says that it was underground, and when they were working on that reactor, that it blew up, almost like a small thermonuclear explosion, but a small one. And this happened at the Nevada test site. So even if back then, if they heard a boom or felt a boom, they're just going to say it was a test, right? So you got to remember, this guy had all of majestic clearance and security. So who would know better about Zeta or about the Greys? Would be him. You know, and they of course they hired him to reverse engineer UFOs. This is what he claims. I mean, he's all over, you know, a lot of shows. You just go to YouTube and actually type in Bob Lazar. You'll see hundreds of videos on him. From the very beginning when he came out till even recently. Does he get paid? Probably not that much. They say he doesn't really do it for anything. He's just getting the information out. So he also claims that he walked into a UFO to inspect these crafts, right? And I don't know if you heard my podcast on EMF, the electronic magnetic fields, how they're created. Well, he claims that there's an upper deck and a lower deck, right? On this UFO. So on the lower deck, he says there's like 3 pylons, there are 3, you know, cylinders beneath the craft that carry this electronic magnetic field and is able to bend the gravity in front of it. Like, I don't know if you ever heard of the way that they do the bowling ball on the bed, how it if you move it forward, it kind of bends down, so it'll go forward and it'll go back. It says that's why you always see it in this motion, and the crafts are like pointing down or pointing up, or slightly, or they have this erratic movement because of those cylinders at the bottom are actually moving left and right to make the craft go in those directions, and they do wobble as well. And he explains it pretty well on one of his videos. So he claims that they had at least 9 UFOs in the hangar, but he was only allowed to work on one, which is your standard disc shape. He said those 9 crafts were all different shapes. You know, we always see these posters of these different kind of crafts that are out there, you know, different shapes. You know, you heard the Dr. Greer, how these things just transform themselves, or it's alive. A lot of these crafts are alive. You know, he said that these crafts, you know, they looked like they were unpolished, almost like a unpolished stainless steel. And they came from the planet called ZR3, the third planet in that star system.
All aboard for your chance to win $1,000 every week until December 28th. That's right, $1,000 cash just in time for the holidays. To hop on board, just head to ChurchillMortgage.com and punch your ticket to the Churchill Express giveaway. Visit ChurchillMortgage.com for your chance to win big.
This is a paid advertisement. NMLS ID 1591. NMLSConsumerAccess.org. Equal housing lender. 1749 Mallory Lane, Suite 100, Brentwood, Tennessee 37027.
Right? The Zeta Reticuli. You know, when Betty and Barney Hill, when they had their abduction, right? She did a drawing. And that drawing she did was pretty darn close to the original. Never knew anything about constellations or anything like that, but she drew it out freehand and was pretty darn close. And like I talked about earlier, the Roswell, the EBE-1, this is the actual alien that survived the crash in Roswell. One of them did. He quickly learned to speak English, but he said he was from a planet called Serpo, S-E-R-P-O, 40 light years from Zeta Reticuli. You know, why Zeta Reticuli? You know, there's got to be life on that constellation, in that area. Everything points to that direction. Why only that direction? You know, unfortunately, EBE-1, he died in 1952, and he never made contact with home, right? He never was able to go back home. That they claimed that the government did an exchange program with the Ebans, right? E-B-A-N-S, Ebans. They're an alien race. With an exchange with 12 astronauts, which was 10 men and 2 women. It was supposed to be scheduled on April 24th, 1964. And from my understanding, there's a few articles out there on this, that this incident did take place, and it did happen. There was a trade-off. And I'll do a podcast on that story, just on that story, because that story alone is going to blow you away. So like I said earlier, why not Zeta Reticuli? Why not? Anything is possible. Especially with life in that area. And I believe there's a high probability that there is probably life in that area, whether they're good grays or the bad ones. And they're all in that area. I've even heard of the Palladians are in that area as well, which monitor the grays. And they monitor abductions. And they make sure that you don't get harmed or hurt. And I wanted to talk about that today because, you never hear anything else coming from any other direction but Zeta. And Zeta Reticuli, I believe, it's a Latin based word, which how they came up with the name. I've always wondered about that. I do, like I said, I do a lot of podcasts, and a lot of these abductions, good or bad. Whether they talk about when they're under regression, what these EBEs or extraterrestrials, the Greys, are communicating to them. About 98% of the time, they're from this constellation, Zeta Reticuli. So there has to be something there. I mean, why make up so many stories? Even in your abduction stories, I've seen so many that have been debunked. I've seen some that haven't been debunked. I've seen and heard a lot that it's true what's coming out of these people's mouths. And they say it for themselves. I'm not here to make you believe. I just want you to know what I experienced and what they told me. And they always, abductees always say, I didn't want this. I never thought about what's out there, What could be out there? I just thought it was Earth. That's it. Humans. That's it. Like Whitley Strieber said, I never asked for it. But, I thought it was important to give you guys a little bit more information on Zeta Reticuli. I wish we knew a little bit more about it. And I hope they go into more in depth once they get that new telescope out there. And I hope they point it in that direction. Because I sure would like to know more information on what is out there. I'm just as intrigued on other life forms out there than you are. Because if you weren't, you wouldn't be listening to Alien Strand Podcast. Or you wouldn't be searching these UFO sites or documentaries if you didn't have an open mind. And wonder what's out there. And why do they come here? And are they making changes here? Are they walking amongst us here? Are they flying above us here? Yes. That's what we see every day in videos and pictures. Why stay hidden? I don't think that the Earth or the human species is ready for that yet. I'm sure they're probably afraid to give us a little bit more technology than what we already have, because they've seen what man can do to each other. They can do a lot good, and they could do a lot of bad. So if you were in their shoes, what would you do? That gives you something to think about. And I'm talking about the good ones. I'm not talking about the bad ones. So I'm glad you guys got a lot of information out of today's podcast about Zeta Reticuli, where it's from, what it is, and what's behind it. I thought that was very important, especially hearing it from Mr. Bob Lazar. I'll put on a couple of links to this podcast so you guys can watch some videos yourselves. Some of them are a little lengthy, but they're really good and they're really interesting to watch. Especially when it comes to information. I like to sit through them and watch them all, because you never know when you're going to miss something. Sometimes you'll hear it repetitive, but then every once in a while you'll get a piece of new information which you can add to your puzzle, right? Which I always talk about. And once you put that piece of the puzzle in there, it's just going to make a bigger picture. And you'll be able to see what everything is all about. So, I hope you guys start putting the puzzle together. And I hope you guys enjoyed this podcast. If you have a chance, check out my podcast, the one before this one, number 44. She'll give you some information on what happened to her, the aliens that abducted her, and the ones that saved her. You can work your way backwards. Just keep on going backwards. It's not in any order. But Alien Strand is here to give you all the information that you need to make that judgment call next time you see a picture or you see a video or you see some information on there. I try to get as much information as I can that's on point, so that way you guys can be on point when you're making your point. Huh? You like that? So, if you can, download the Alien Strand podcast app. They're on your Google Play. Catch us on Facebook, Tumblr, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and alienstrand.com. Go to our Facebook page. I'm posting a lot of good stuff every day. Comment on it. I'll try to get back with you. But coming up to Alien Strand podcast, I got some new guests. So on number 46, which is the one after this one, I have a good friend of mine his name is Michael Beavers. And we're going to be talking about, UFOs and one that he actually filmed that's on YouTube, okay? So he actually has his own podcast out, and we'll plug in that information as soon as he gets on the show. And we'll have some pretty cool conversations between him and I about UFOs, aliens, and the UFOs and everything. It's going to be a nice one. And then the week after that, I got this gentleman. He's from France. His name is Jesse Ashrael Craignew. And he claims to be a hybrid. So he's going to give us all the information that he has and what he's been going through, and he's going to give us just a lot of good stuff that he has. I've seen a few of his videos, And, he's going to be a very, very good guest on the show. I'm going to ask him a lot of good questions, probably the questions that you guys wanted to ask, especially about hybrids. But until then, you guys have yourselves a good day, good evening, and a good night.
Go Ford for your next truck or SUV and find an easier way to buy with Woodhouse Ford today, and experience the convenience of buying with Woodhouse Ford. Save up to $13,000 off MSRP on a 2023 Ford F-150 XLT, plus 3.9% APR for 60 months with approved credit. $299 doc fee due at signing. Security deposit waived. Expires 1/02/2024.